And he was like, gardening, bin cleaning, house cleaning, car cleaning. And I was like, car valeting, that's it. He sort of looked at me and thought I was about 12. I went and head round the corner and answered the phone and sort of tried to put on a bit of a deeper voice. To me, there was almost like a naivety that I was like, you'd be silly not to invest in this, it's obviously going to work. It was like sitting in the pub, right? Everybody get your phone out, company's house, set up a company. My role is to create an environment where people can be at their best. We had like 15 staff and we lost half of them. Could be game over. This story doesn't even sound real now that I'm saying it. My boss has just sat me down and asked me if I want to start a franchise instead of being unemployed. And I'm pretty sure it's a scam like. I'm like,
Sam, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We're super excited to have you here. So we believe that lessons are best told through stories, and that's kind of what we're all about. So just give me a snapshot of where your business is right now. Tell me about it.
Today?
Right now, yeah.
So today, Fresh is a franchising business. We have valeting business and we have smart repair businesses. We've got 85 across the UK. The main things we do, we help people get customers, we give them vans, we give them business support, and really the biggest thing that we do now is give them a community, so places to learn from, ideas on how to improve their business, and sort of like other people who are sort of shoulder by shoulder helping them build.
Amazing. But I mean, you've come a long way from the humble beginnings of, like I know quite a lot about your story, so it'd be cool if you could just kind of, start from the beginning and kind of just talk us through this journey that you've been on from going from, this kind of idea of starting all the way through to today. So
sure.
How did it start?
So I think day one would be high school. I took biology as a higher, which was a big mistake. And a thought occurred to me, which is that getting a job might be like being in school, and I just thought this is the shittest thing ever. And so I decided that there was no way I wanted to get a job, because if this was what the whole of my life was going to be like, anyway, I won't finish that sentence, but I think you know what I mean. And so I thought I'm going to start a business and just see how that goes. I sort of felt like if I really sort of put my all into something, I'd be able to go really far. But in the constraints of something like school, I wasn't motivated. So kind of like a gut feeling. And as I was leaving school, because this was in 6th year, I spoke to my friend's dad, who had 5 nurseries. They're called Pinocchios. He would actually he'd be a really good guest for the podcast, actually, because he's a really awesome guy. And he has the best name ever. He's called Stratos Koulis.
Cool.
Anyway, bit of a tangent. So he offered me a job at one of the nurseries and says, "Oh, if you're going to start a business, then you can work for me first." So he paid me £5 an hour, and I worked in this nursery, saved up money, and I went to meet this. I had a friend who introduced me to some other friends, met people who own businesses, to ask them what I should do. So I ended up meeting a whole bunch of people who owned businesses, and I said, I'm going to start a business, but I don't know what, and I'm saving up money. And there was this guy called Roger Green, who has a company called Spotless Cleaning. He's a really, really fantastic guy. And he was like sitting in his office. I was wearing my turquoise nursery uniform, and he was like gardening, bin cleaning, house cleaning, car cleaning. Like, he was just like rattling off names, and I was like, car valeting, that's it. Sold. So yeah.
And you how old?
I was either 17 or just turned. I just left school, so I was 17.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I was 17, and then I sort of slowly bought up gear. I bought my dad's. He had a Peugeot 2007 SW. You know, the one that's like really ugly with bug eyes. And I put the back seats down and had a generator and a Hoover and some cloths. And I went around, started handing out leaflets and accruing customers very slowly.
So it was from the boredom of that class at school, and you thought this is maybe how business is going to be, and then you got the idea just to start your own business.
I thought that's what getting a job might be. I had this, which actually now I know you can get good jobs, so I don't feel the same. But yeah. I thought, maybe I'm going to leave school and I'm going to go work for some big company that's going to be like school, but just slightly different. Yeah. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is terrible.
Yeah. And go back on that again. You had exposure to other people who had business as well then. So
yeah. So my dad had a friend that had a business, and I said to my dad, who I didn't know that well, I said to my dad, can you ask if he would meet me for lunch? And I met him, and then he introduced me to Roger and another guy, and they both introduced me to some people. So I guess I learned quite early on that people are really happy to help if you're enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So it kind of spiraled like that. And some of them, all of them pretty much, I still keep in touch, and I could, I'm still on a sort of could text them basis.
Yeah. Just goes to show how important environment and contacts actually are. That started the whole journey for you, right?
Yeah. And, my parents weren't like, why do you want to speak to him? You're never going to start a business. I don't even recall them asking any questions. He was like, oh, there you go.
That plays a massive role, though, because I think, the idea of starting a business at that age, not going to uni, not even kind of that thought process is like, no, I want to start a business. That's what I'm going to do. Like, I think lots of parents these days would probably discourage that or have done anyway.
Yeah.
When I started the business and went to uni around the same time, and when I went to uni after 4 months, because my logic was I want to make sure I'm not missing out on something really great, so I'm going to go, but I'll run the business and I'll do both, and then I'll make a decision. And after 4 months, I phoned my mum and said, "Yeah, I'm done with this business full time." And her opinion was like, "I'm surprised it took you so long." Like me and your dad thought like 3 weeks and he's out.
Right. Wow.
So they were like really supportive, and I also said, by the way, I have to come home and PS, have you got 10 grand? Because I don't have enough money yet left to do what I want.
Yeah. You just kind of paused there when you said the word yet. You said, I don't have enough money yet. There was a slight pause in what you said. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, like I was trading my time for money valeting, and I really enjoyed it. And it's easy to make money from that without overhead. So I guess the reason I said yet is because I wanted to move faster than I was moving, and I could see it might take me 6 months to save up 10 grand, but if you could lend me it, then I could do it now. And I was sort of like working out like that.
Yeah.
Good foreshadowing.
Yeah, and they got equity for it, and now it's like it's a very good investment.
I bet it is. Fantastic. Well, no, the reason what I was picking up on was the yet. That's kind of what they're teaching kids at school now, isn't it? The whole growth mindset, which says I'm not good at maths. ... yet, and it's this idea of, well, you can get better at it with applied kind of focus and practice. So, I think that's probably one of your stories as well around growth mindset, and just I can learn, I can get better at anything.
Yeah, I'm quite optimistic. My ops director started using the word, he's saying cautiously optimistic. Yeah. So I've added that into my vocabulary now.
Yeah, nice.
So in the early days then, first customer, like tell me that story. Do you remember that first?
Well, my first fake customer was my mum. She was my first and second and third customer until I had some real customers. My first real customer is a very embarrassing story. So I grew up in Musselburgh, and I was sort of near, just where the Grove is, maybe not because you don't know Musselburgh. Anyway, I was near Musselburgh handing out leaflets, and I put a leaflet through a guy's letterbox. And as I put it through, he must have been standing nearby, and so he picked it up and read it and opened the door. And as he opened the door, he says to me like, "Hey," and then he sort of looked at me and thought I was about 12. This is my impression anyway, and sort of went like, "Oh, if I phone this number, will they book me in?" And I went, "Yeah," and then walked away, and he shut the door, and I was like, "Oh, I hope he doesn't phone me." But the leaflet had a mobile number on it, which was my mobile, which was in my pocket. So he phoned me like 10 seconds later, and while I was outside his house, and so then I went and head round the corner and answered the phone and sort of tried to put on a bit of a deeper voice. But he booked, and then I had to go and see him a few days later, and it was traumatizing.
So did he not click that actually the person that he had phoned was actually the guy he'd just spoken to?
He didn't click. Well, we never spoke about it, but when like you have a little look with someone where you both know that you know. I think that's how I felt anyway when I went to do the job.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, but I mean, at that time it was like £25, and I'd be there for like the whole day. So I think he won in the end.
And I get so that was your first real customer. So you said that you had a fake one, which was your mum. What do you mean by a fake customer, and why?
Well, I don't know if it counts. I think that was like, you do my laundry, I'll clean your car.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe.
Yeah. And then what after that? Then that's set the snowball rolling, so to speak.
Yeah. So we did I think I did like £900 in the first month. And then it slowly declined. So this was August 2015. It slowly declined, and in December 2015, I had one customer, because on around Christmas time, my gran asked me how business was, and I said we'd had no customers, and so she bought a voucher. So that was my only sale in December. So it did take a bit of time. Yeah. And then by about the summer of next year, we were doing maybe $3 or $4 grand a month, and that was just like me handing out leaflets and word of mouth. And I do think that I was doing a really good job, and I was putting a lot of time in, and I was passionate about giving a good service. But yeah, it took quite a bit of time to get to that point.
And were you on your own at this point, or had you recruited anyone at this point?
I usually had one person working for me. So I had, a guy that I went to uni with, another guy and a friend. I didn't recruit properly until about October 2016.
Right.
I hired a proper man, not one of my uni friends, a really fantastic Polish guy called Rafał Bukowski, and he was around for a few years, and that was like the real deal. And then I realized like how good people can be when they're not like a lazy student. That was a big awakening for me. It's like, oh, he turns up every day on time and works hard. That's so surprising.
And is that a problem in your industry?
I think that for that, not for franchising, but for employment, I think that for any industry that's not really high paid, I think it's always going to be hard to find like a large number of really committed staff. So it's always a bit of an industry, a bit of an issue. But I guess the franchise model really supports that, and we'll come to that, because the earnings are a lot higher, and their commitment and their responsibility and their investment are all higher. So
what was the point then from you're building it 4, 5, 6 grand a month, and you kind of get to this tipping point where it's like, okay, we can keep going, we can keep building, we keep hiring. What was kind of the decision there to then kind of switch into franchising, and kind of what was the thought process in that? And then, how did that actually transpire?
Yeah, I mean, the first issue like that I just touched on was actually getting staff, and I'm sure like every small business owner can attest to the pain when you don't have a system, and you sort of think it's everyone else's fault, which is not necessarily a good mentality. So we got Rafał in the October. Actually, the September just before that was my birthday, and I'd had the business for a year at that point, and I was almost thinking about quitting because I'd been valeting so much on my own and couldn't get good staff. And finally got Rafał, and he was awesome. Rafał's mate joined, and then another mate, another mate, and another mate. So there was these 5 Polish guys who are just all absolutely fantastic guys. And I think we must have had 10 or 12 vans or something like that. And the business started to grow in complication, and it started to become impossible to make the numbers work. So by the time you're like paying VAT, and you've got someone answering phone calls, and you've got a marketing budget and a marketing company and an accountant and blah, 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 the overheads stack up. The price just needed to be much higher, and it became impossible to price against small companies that aren't VAT registered with no overheads. And so basically we were going to have to charge £100 for a full valet to make any money. And we just knew that it wouldn't work. We'd sort of trialed putting our prices up a bit, and understandably people thought, if I can get it done for 50, why would I pay 80? And at the same time we had guys who would leave because they were really, really good and they want to start their own business. And I guess, Alan, this is something that you see a lot, where someone's been a technician and they're really strong and they go off to start a business, and then actually running the business is really hard, and there's a lot to it. And a few times they would leave, they left, started, failed, came back and said, can I have a job again? And I was like, great, because you're really good. But it kind of occurred to me, like, we're really good at the business side of things, but we're struggling because we're not a small business. We're now a big business, and people don't want to pay big business overheads on getting their car washed. And so it kind of all came together very tightly, because a few of the Polish guys decided to go back to Poland at the same time with their families. And at the start of 2019, we had like 15 staff, and we lost half of them over a 3-month period. It was also the beast from the east.
Yeah.
So it was this really harsh, hardcore winter, and everyone was outside trying to wash cars, and they were not happy. And some of the team left, and a few more left. And so we had this crisis where we had these bigger company overheads, and we'd lost half our staff, and we're now struggling to get staff. But we're really good at marketing and systems and helping and building the business. And so, around March time, looked like it could be game over. And so decided to swap to franchising in 1 month and move all of our revenue into franchises that our employees owned. And so I had this notes tab with all these franchise details and all of the codes that you need and pins and all that sort of stuff. I accidentally deleted it once, so that's maybe a pain for another time. But we had all these businesses, put all our revenue into it, and then started trying to bring people on and give away franchises for free. In 2019, and then eventually we raised 50 grand from a high net worth, and that sort of allowed us to stretch the model out and really go for it.
But that's a really quick transition then from the old model to a franchise model, and that, so you must have been. How did you do that so quickly then? Because it's not necessarily that easy, I think, to set up a franchise, but you did it pretty fast.
I I think it's my character would be like, once I know what needs to be done, I'm really quick to be like, let's just get it all done. And my approach is always like, I'm not really that focused on what needs done. I'm focused on like who can help. So who do we know that can lease vans to franchises? Do we have a franchise consultant who can do franchise legals? Who do we need to hire? And so sort of like pull all the people together. I'd say that's my strength. And also there was like necessity, because we're like, we can't trade for 3 more months and have a massive big VAT bill that we can't pay. We need this business model to change, because we've now got half the number of staff we had, and we can't support it. And so, it was all just what we do anyway, just teaching other people. So I guess we kind of winged it, but the guys did really well. And so it worked out.
And so just remind us, what point in the journey are we at so far when the franchise kicked in?
So franchising April 2019. So we're sort of 3 years and 8 months in at this point. So we ran the employee model to the death and swapped to franchising early 2019.
Right. Wow. And then and what was that like, getting the franchise team on board?
As in the franchisees?
So as in the franchisees, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it. So initially, there was no marketing person and no sales, so I was marketing and sales. I enjoyed it. It's a completely different conversation to recruiting, because you've got this opportunity and you find someone who's at a stage in life where they want to make a big change and they've got some money to start a business, but usually they've had a stable job their whole life and they're quite worried about the idea of starting a business, and they sort of want a middle ground where it's not as risky as starting on their own. They know they're going to hit the ground running. And so it's just about facilitating that conversation to make sure that what they want to get out of their business, we can help them with. And I really enjoyed it. I think we grew pretty quickly from that. I think franchising for certain types of businesses is a really good business model. There's a lot that can go wrong in franchising. I'm sure everyone knows some people with franchise horror stories. But for us, it's been really, really great. And I mean, from that first year, I think pretty much almost all of the guys are still trading 3 years later. 4 years. 4 years.
Great.
But how did that? Because it was quite a quick comment where it was like, so we just transferred all the employees into franchises. Like
it was like sitting in the pub, right? Everybody get your phone out, company's house, set up a company, and then it was like, how much does it cost? £11 or something. I think I paid for it. Get the companies live. There was one guy specifically just before that. So basically, the first guy that stepped out, his name is Vidmantis. So he came and he sort of set the way, and then everybody followed. Although we did have a bit of a nightmare in the pub with Vidmantis. So his business is called VVZ Valeting, and he tries to tell us it stands for Vidmantis Vilma, which is his wife, Zukovicis Valeting. But actually, he didn't want to do it. He went home and spoke to his wife and came back, and the next day he's like, "Where do I sign?" So it's Vilma Vidmantis Zukovicis. She is absolutely wearing the trousers. I hope he doesn't hear this, actually. But anyway, so Vidmantis says, "I want to meet you because I'm ready to sign the document." And so we met at a pub in Causeway Side. Me and Vidmantis met, and we've had a few meetings since, and it's 15 minutes of business. He's really straight talking, sort everything else out, have a few pints. And so it was getting on in the evening, and I invited a few friends, Alex being one of them. Alex came with his wife Lynn, and I invited another friend of mine, Theo, who's a tennis coach. And he came into the pub, sat down, and this is like we've been there for 4 hours or something. Sat down and we said, "Hi Theo, how's it going, mate? What's been happening?" And he says, "You know what? I've had the weirdest day." This story doesn't even sound real now that I'm saying it. He says, "I've had the weirdest day," because he's working as a tennis coach. He says, my boss has just sat me down and asked me if I want to start a franchise instead of being unemployed. And I'm pretty sure it's a scam, like." And we were I was like, oh, hell. Like, and he doesn't really have, well, I'm not going to comment on his emotional intelligence. I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. So we were kind of sitting there going, stop it. Like, stop talking about this. Didn't pick up any tales. He's like, because right now I'm employed and I'm getting paid this. And apparently I just start a franchise and I'm going to earn more money.
Oh, no.
But how does that work? I'm like, shut up.
And was it picked up on at all? Or?
Oh, yeah. Vidmantis found it funny, to be fair.
Yeah.
So it was fine.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable though. Like just being there, and it was just like,
yeah.
I knew the conversation you just had with Vidmantis, and then
So what's the lesson? that you learned there?
Don't invite your stupid mates to important business meetings.
Good one. Excellent.
Yeah, which hopefully I still follow.
Yeah.
So it's just great to see like and see Vidmans is still about. Like, if you're in Edinburgh, you can actually book him and he can come clean your car. And so, can you just talk about like maybe a little bit about the success of the franchises? Like what have been, after doing the franchise model for 3 years, like how has it changed each of those individual lives? And what's the main difference between that and being employed?
Yeah. I mean, Vidmantis is a great story. So he was the first one to start valeting. And I think like what happens to people when they start franchising is they just take way more ownership and suddenly they know all the numbers. And I think for most people, customer service gets better. They enjoy it more. Normally they sort of get family involved. There's a wife who often knows the numbers and knows the details. And so it really becomes like a sort of family activity and you can sort of see that person take a lot more pride in it. Mm-hmm. So I think, putting money aside, I think it's really good for them. To run a small business. Mm-hmm. Vidmantis specifically has done really well, employed his cousin, and then recently he started doing smart repairs, which is like mobile body repairs. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty much the exact same thing where he said, I've got this idea I want to start, and we had a meeting in the pub, 15 minutes of business, and then we went on to win a table football tournament in the middle of the night. So it was another good day. He started a smart repair business, and now he's earning more, and he's got this hybrid van where he's now fixing his customers' cars as well. We've got other guys that have come from working in a warehouse and started, and now they've got 4 vans, and you really just see people take it. It can be really exciting.
So are you saying then that you had the car valeting franchise, and then was it his idea for the smart side of it, and that then became part of the model?
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at how to expand the product offering anyway, and so we were looking at lots of different things. But he came and said, "I'll pay for all the stuff I need. I just need you to do what you do now and give me customers and support me." And we were like, "Fine."
Nice. And now, how many of the franchisees are offering that service?
So we Vidmantis ran a 6-month pilot from July last year, and is it Monday today?
Yeah.
We launched 8 franchises today.
Wow.
At the same time, so there's 9 on the road now.
Brilliant.
8's too many. That's a lesson. Don't launch 8 franchises at the same time when you don't know what you're doing yet.
That's amazing. But what about the support then? Because one of the big responsibilities a franchisor has is to support the network. So how does that look for you?
So I guess like the first problem to tackle is always sales. Well, maybe you should say you need to know what you're doing before that. So there's the training and the systems and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's not the most complicated part in our industry, because most people can have three or 4 weeks of good training and they're fine. So after that, they go home, they're not in the safety of the company and all the people. And it's, they're sort of at home laying in bed thinking, am I even going to have any bookings, and am I even going to pay my bills?
Yeah. And
so the first part then is always the marketing. So, when I started, like I mentioned, it took me a year to get to about $3,000 a month, whereas we expect our guys to do that straight away. Mm-hmm. So we've got people in house that do SEO and Google ads and Facebook ads and things like that. And there's a lot of advantages to having a UK wide brand. So getting customers, and then on an ongoing basis, they'll have like a franchise support manager. Mm-hmm. So we'll make monthly management accounts with them, look through the information, talk about sort of their goals compared to what's actually happening. Kind of the discipline that when you're running your own business and it's really small, most people, including me, don't do. Yeah. You kind of got accountability with the franchisor. So if they come and say, "Oh, I want to have more money," say, "That's fine. Let's get the P&L out. Mm-hmm. Tell us where it's going to come from and what you're going to do about it." Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned at the start, the community is a really big one as well. Like, I remember there's so many technical things that happened to me when I first started that I had no one to ask, and our guys are like posting in the chat, my generator's making this weird noise and whatever, and then you get like 10 people flood in with solutions. Like when I first started, I had this issue with the pressure washer, which was sometimes, never knew why, it just didn't work. And after like 6 months, I realized what was happening is I had the wrong kind of pressure washer. And so when I was on a hill where the water tank was below the pressure washer, water wasn't being pulled by the pressure washer. And so for like 6 months on my own, I'd get to someone's house on a hill, and just be like, sorry, for some reason pressure washer isn't working, and there's that times 100, and then that's kind of what a franchise network stops.
Yeah,
it's kind of there, and you've got people to ask, other franchises. You've got our head office. If your generator breaks in the first week, we can go fight the supplier for you, and we are quite a big important client for them, whereas one man isn't. So you really sort of get the benefit of being a wider business but you're small and it's on you.
Excellent. It's a good example as well. But the franchise gets stronger because of the community as well. So
yeah, definitely. I think being a solo business owner, when you don't have anyone in your team, especially if there's no one in your family that's got a business, if you do have a bit of a problem and you're worried about money or you're worried about something, a lot of people I think don't have anyone to ask.
Yeah.
So you've been on this like crazy then hyper growth over these last, year or so. Can you just talk through what the kind of the mental process has been for you? Again, I know quite a lot of it, so it'd be just cool to understand like the pressures and even how you deal with like the chaos of what onboarding 8 franchises, raising money, like just talk me through what the last year's been like.
Yeah, mentally exhausting process, I think is a better way to say it. No, it's been really good. So I guess just for context, so we went from 12 franchises to like 35, and then from 35 to 85. So that across the last 2 years. As the business grows, my role is less about doing individual things. So 2 years ago, I was like marketing and sales and finance and tech and blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes I enjoy my role more because I'm bringing in a specialist and someone comes in and I go, oh, that's how you're supposed to do operations. I thought I was good. I'm actually terrible compared to that person. So part of it has been easier in that sense. I think my personality is better suited to a bigger business. But it has been very, very crazy. And I think like resilience has been really, really important. And for me, like just trying to stay really fit. Trying to like I'm really big on sleeping really well, eating really well, staying really fit. There's like a lot of pressure. I just went to do a week smart repair training in Bradford, and I had like an awesome week because my only job was like be trained on smart repairs. I like, this is fantastic. Whereas normally a lot of the time I'm getting the updates from different people about their biggest problems, and so I've got to take like the biggest problems in the business, and then I've got to raise money or try and be enthusiastic and be a coach and try and have a vision for the future. And so it's a really hard balance to know all the worst things and then be excited about coming up with a solution. I definitely don't get it right all the time. I go through periods of like being a bit tired, but I make it a big priority. Like if I'm in a period of being really tired, like I'm constantly trying to cut time out my diary to try and get more energy, because I could work 50 hours, but if I'm tired, I might get hardly any value out of that. Whereas I only need to have a few important conversations that are done really well, and I can get loads and loads of value out of it. And that's been a real adjustment, because in the early days it was like most of my problems can be outworked just by me working long hours, and that's definitely not the case anymore. In fact, almost like I have to try and outrest to be able to be in the right mindset. So that's been a really, really big shift. And like part of that is not feeling guilty. You sort of hear about like, oh, business owner, he's always at the golf course, who knows where he is. But actually as the business gets really big, and by the way, I don't play golf yet.
Nice.
As the business gets really big, I'm starting to see more why there's that sort of idea that they're never in the office, because it's so important to try and stay in a good place.
And so how do you see your role then what do you call yourself within the org structure, I guess?
So I guess like for raising money, I would say like CEO and founder.
Yeah.
So I guess I am CEO or managing director or whatever you want to call it. And I think I kind of only have 3 jobs. There's coming up with a vision that's exciting and sharing it. Yeah. There's being a coach and a boss and a line manager to a small number of people that I need to find and retain, and there's not running out of money. Yeah. So that's my 3 jobs. They transpire into lots of other jobs, but I try and keep it really simple. It makes me feel better.
Yeah. But you've done a fabulous job at actually kind of attracting people. I think you touched on it there. This idea of how do you attract people, retain, well, motivate them and ultimately retain them. So what are some of the things that you do to kind of tick those boxes, so to speak?
So in terms of finding them in the first place, I think that I'm naturally quite intuitive with what sort of people I want to work with. And so I think, from as early as Rafal, my first person in the office was a French lady called Eve, who's just amazing. You probably spoke to her because she still works with us.
Right.
Five and a bit years later.
Great.
I think it depends how you view it. Either I've been lucky or I'm quite intuitive to find people who I just think are a really good culture fit. But then maybe also my personality attracts people in the sense that it's quite a energetic way to do business. I'm really hands off in the sense that like I want to find motivated people who just want to be given the space and the resources to do their job well, and then I kind of just leave them to it and work really hard on a culture that is really inclusive, where people are treated really well. I always say like my role is to create an environment where people can be at their best. And so when I'm having conversations with someone, I'm always thinking about what does this person need from me in this conversation for them to be better at their job. And them being better at their job can be them having less work or less stress. So it's not about like milking them necessarily. It's like, what space do they need to be? Where do they need to move to? What perspective shift do they need to have? What resources do they need to have so that they can be better at their job?
So what kind of have you got any examples to bring that to life? Because I think culture is quite it's a hugely interesting subject for people in business. So what might some things be?
A couple of specific examples. We just hired a head of smart repairs to come on and run the smart repairs part of the business. And he's got 20 years experience and he's worked in big smart repair companies where you're kind of like, this is your box and this is what you need to do. And he's come on and, I'm trying to make him the hero. I'm like, you're the expert. We need you. We're really glad you're here. These are the things that are really important that we need to figure out. But I'm not going to try and tell you how we need to do them. But I'm not saying I make it really easy. I've probably thrown a lot on him really quickly, and I think he's probably feeling a bit overwhelmed by it. But I've kind of acknowledged that and said there's a lot to this. I think you're doing really well, and we catch up on a regular basis. And I think that my leadership style is quite relaxed, but also a really weird combination of relaxed and assertive. Because I think people know exactly what I want from them. I don't think it helps when you like don't know what your boss wants, so you kind of try something and you don't know how they're going to react. And so I think I'm really assertive and hopefully really supportive as well. Where there's written record of exactly what I expect from you, but I'm checking in really informally to say, have you got everything you need and can I help you?
Great.
And you have a day? Do you call it like a mental? Like a
wellness day.
A wellness day,
yeah. Well, this occurred to me just after the investment round because our team were like super tired because me and the ops director had been busy raising money and everyone else needed hires in their department because we'd been growing too quick, but we didn't have the money. And I was like, what I need for myself is just a couple of days that aren't holidays where I just recharge because I'm going to be better at my job. And I thought actually the whole team could have that. So we introduced this thing called wellness days where we say we'll give you a small budget. I can't remember how much it is. It's like 30 quid or something. And you take the day off. It doesn't count as a holiday. You can take it at short notice anytime you want. There's no criteria for what you spend it on. You can buy a bottle of wine and a Chinese and watch Netflix, or you can go climb a mountain, like do whatever you want. And there's no pressure to report on it. There's no nothing. And we just ask that you don't just include it in your normal holidays. Like we want it, like don't just add it on so you've got a day extra to pack before you go to Spain. Don't make it boring. Like your objective is to feel refreshed, whatever that looks like for you. And we have like lots of little things like that.
I think that's just a great example of like, it's such a small thing, but it can make such a massive difference in like the day-to-day play of chaos when like business is busy and guys are working hard, putting their neck on the line to like push this business forward. And there's just those nice little, things that really make the difference.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good for morale to see what other people are doing as well. So we've got like a WhatsApp group with our team, and I think it was a couple of months ago. One of our team loves dogs, and so she took her dog to this dog bath where you and the dog get in this big water tank thing. But she was posting videos of it, and it just looked really fun. And she was saying thanks, it's a great wellness day. Yeah. So I think it's nice for everybody, and I think it's one of those things where you think, I lose 2 days per person, so it's costing me money. But it's like, but you've got like 300 other days, and if they're like 1% better from those 2 days, you actually made money. Not that it's all about money, but even if your objective is to be as commercial as possible, I think treating people really well pays dividends for sure.
It fits with what you said just earlier around, you know, the importance that you put on your energy and kind of your sleep and exercise. So I think, you know, it's in tune with what you said earlier. So no surprise.
I just get grumpy really quickly. I'm not even saying it's because I'm smart. It's like if I'm tired, I'll just be grumpy.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about, you touched on investment rounds as well, and I guess getting successfully going through that, getting the investment isn't something that all businesses manage to achieve. So I mean, what's some of that journey that you could maybe kind of pull out as lessons for anyone listening in?
Yeah, so we raised from a high net worth in 2019, which is a bit easier because it's kind of a bit more like finger in the air. You know, it was a good business, and it's that person made a 10x return from our next investment round. So I'm not saying it was a bad investment, but that one is sort of easier. You kind of just like find someone you know, almost family and friends. Proper investment rounds a bit more hardcore. It was really, really good process. I think it was even just a great process to help me think about the way the business should be run. I mean, people in private equity, basically they know exactly what metrics and what to focus on straight away to decide if they think a business is going to be successful based on their experience with a large number of other businesses. And so for me, I actually found it massively helpful to see what they cared about and what metrics they cared about. And I think it's partly changed the way that we've run the business. Mm-hmm. In terms of like tips for other people, the easiest thing is like if you have a business that's doing well, either growing really fast or profitable. I mean, we'd grown from 12 to 35 or 40 franchises when we decided that we were going to start raising money, and so the trajectory was really good. I have some really good mentors that helped introduce people. I'd sort of done some things early, like I'd pulled a board together with our investor from before and a couple of really smart guys. And so as a board, we went out and, you know, their connections and some of my connections. It was still a really painful process because you've kind of got three options. You go high net worth syndicate, which is obviously just a group of high net worths, but a bit more formal, or you go VC. And so we sort of tried high net worth and then tried syndicate and then tried VC. So it kind of felt like 3 investment rounds.
Right. Okay.
But I guess once you've done it, it feels simple. You pull together a pitch deck and a financial model, and then you go start meeting people.
Yeah.
But the thought process behind those things is a lot of work for sure.
And I can't help but draw kind of join the dots back to kind of previous things that you've done. So when you left school, one of the things that you asked your dad was to introduce me to business people. And I guess, you know, my question at the time when you said that was, you know, that's for a 17-year-old guy to kind of have the confidence to go out and speak to people who own businesses. You know, that was, I don't know, maybe that's just my judgment on it. It felt like that's quite a big thing to do. You know, so where do you get the confidence from, I guess, to kind of put yourself into these kind of situations?
I mean, I think specific to the investment round, you know, sort of 6 years into the business, I'm well aware of how hard it was, or how hard it is to run a business, and well aware of like what it's going to take to make this a really successful business. And I decided I'm committed to doing it, and I think I can do it. And I think most people wouldn't commit in the same way. In terms of just the hours and the sacrifice to build something that's really special. And I can totally understand why, because it's at the sacrifice of lots of other things. And so, you know, my perspective was to find a young person that's built a sort of multi-million pound turnover business who is highly motivated to keep going and keep going and keep going. Mm-hmm. So it's good track record and the want to do more. To me, there was almost like a naivety that I was like, you'd be silly not to invest in this. It's obviously going to work. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's just quite optimistic by character. But I certainly didn't think it's because I'm special or anything like that. I thought I'm willing to do what it takes to make this work. And I know it's a lot. And so I think I'm a good bet. And so that kind of gave me the confidence because I genuinely believed that it's a good bet and still do for an investor.
Great. So some really quick questions.
Yeah.
Scariest moment
in the whole business journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always scary when you think you're going to run out of money. So yeah, I mean, in the first investment round, I think that I was like calling the investor saying, yeah, kind of needs to be like tomorrow or we won't make the pay run. So that was quite scary.
Yeah. Luckiest break.
I think our luckiest break was during COVID, the English government closed hand car washes, but not mobile valeters. So that happened in conjunction with us starting to launch in England. and that just meant that every area just blossomed from the very start, which was really important.
Wow. Toughest challenge?
I think raising money is really hard, because you're kind of managing a growing business, which is why you need money, and you're managing an investment round, and they're both full-time jobs. It's very hard to do both at the same time.
Final one. What gives you the most pleasure when you look at the business just now? Like, what makes you smile? Like, yeah, we're killing it. Like, we're really doing a great job.
I like seeing people grow. I love it when we've got some franchise owners now that have got a couple of valeting vans, and they're going to add a couple of smart vans, and people that have been in a job for 15 years, where when I first met them they were just like quite dry, because they've just been doing the same thing, going through the motions for such a long time. And sometimes that's the same with our team, where they've had a job for 10 years and they come into this sort of like really entrepreneurial, encouraging environment, and you see them grow in confidence and stop being so corporate. And I always really love to see that, whether it's a person who's been promoted or taken something on, or a franchise owner who's growing. That's definitely my favorite part of the business.
So tell me this, like, I love the kind of the stories that you've told and the kind of conversation that's come through here. So it's fascinating to kind of go from effectively, school to where you're at now, 85 franchisees. Well, actually, one question we haven't asked is where are you going? What's the ambition?
Yeah, so we launched Smart Repairs, the mobile body repairs, like basically this month. We're about to rebrand from FRESH Car Valeting to FRESH Car. So we're going to have these two businesses. We're almost certainly going to launch a couple of other ones. And then there's a lot of tech development that needs to happen around being able to get your car valeted, or get your tire replaced, or get your bodywork repaired. So I'm kind of open-minded about exactly what the route is. Like, when doors open, we'll go through them. We'll keep trying to grow fast. But yeah, kind of becoming a fully serviced car care platform. We could go international, but that's probably a few years away.
And what would the end goal be for you?
I think, when you raise investment, you're committed to exit. The investor invests because they want to get the money back at some point. So, I love building the company. Definitely at some point I'd like to sell it. When I sell it, I'll stay on board. Mm-hmm. But so I'm not exactly sure how that will go. But definitely an exit at some point. Mm-hmm. 5 years, 4 years.
And so many more questions, but I won't ask too many questions about that. But if you were to sum up kind of your motto or your philosophy for business, it might be a quote, a phrase, or just a way you've kind of framed things in your own head. What would that look like?
I guess I've touched on it. Really, it's just all about creating an environment people can be at their best. That's what I'm always thinking about when it comes to strategy, or people, or what we should do next, or even stuff like board meetings. Like, are we getting the best value from every board member? Are we getting the best value from every team member? Have we got franchises that have got great ideas, but we're not creating an environment that they're able to bring those forward? So yeah, all about that environment for people to be their best.
Amazing. Great one.
Great. Well, it's been awesome to have you on. Thank you for telling a little bit about your story, and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sam.